Okay, so listen, we need to talk about something that's blowing up on TikTok right now, and honestly, it's making waves across the entire internet because someone from James Charles's past just came forward with new information, and I'm talking receipts, I'm talking lawyer emails, I'm talking police department involvement, and before you click away thinking you've heard this all before, trust me, there are details here that are going to shock you because this isn't just a rehash of old drama, this is someone finally showing proof after years of being called a liar. And I've gone through everything so you don't have to, but here's the thing. This story starts back in 2020, which feels like a lifetime ago in internet years. But the implications of what allegedly happened are still relevant today, and you're going to want to stick around because the timeline of events is honestly wild. So, back in 2020, a guy named Ethan came forward with allegations against James Charles, and at the time he was only 14 years old when these interactions allegedly happened. And I remember when this first came out because the internet was absolutely divided. Some people believed him, others didn't, and Ethan faced serious backlash, including threats to him and his family, which is absolutely terrible no matter what side you're on. But here's where it gets interesting. Ethan is now 20 years old, and he just posted on TikTok saying he's ready to share his full story with actual evidence this time. And I've watched all his videos, and honestly, the guy seems genuinely traumatized by the whole experience, not just the alleged interactions with James Charles, but also the aftermath of speaking out. Now, let me take you back to how this allegedly started because the details matter here. Ethan says he was on TikTok building his following when James Charles commented on one of his videos. And for a young creator, that's huge, right? Like, imagine one of the biggest beauty influencers at the time noticing you. That's a dream come true for most people. But according to Ethan's newest videos, James then messaged him directly, which contradicts his original story where he said his friends dared him to message James first. And this inconsistency is something people are definitely pointing out in the comments, but Ethan explains that he was scared back then and didn't tell the full story. And honestly, I can understand being terrified when you're getting death threats and people are calling you a liar constantly. That would mess anyone up. So, according to Ethan, after James messaged him, they started talking, and eventually James asked for his Snapchat, saying he felt more comfortable talking there. And Ethan claims he told James he was 14 years old. Now, here's the critical part. Ethan says his birthday was publicly visible on his profile, showing he was born in 2004, which would have made him 14 at the time. Although there's some confusion because his profile now shows 2005, and people are obviously questioning that discrepancy. But Ethan maintains he told James his age directly in their conversations. The conversations allegedly escalated from there, with James becoming what Ethan describes as extremely comfortable with him. And Ethan shared screenshots back in 2020 showing he was blocked by James on Instagram. And in these screenshots, you could only see James' side of the conversation, which obviously raised questions about what Ethan might have said that we couldn't see. And this lack of complete evidence is part of why so many people doubted his story initially. But now Ethan says he has more proof and he's ready to show it. In his original video from years ago, Ethan said some pretty serious things. He said James started wanting more from him, and that despite asking him to stop multiple times, James continued, and he claimed James knew he was 14 but thought he could take advantage of him because of his age. And Ethan also alleged that James threatened to out him whenever he refused to do what James wanted. And if true, that's absolutely manipulative and wrong on multiple levels, but again, this was all hard to verify at the time because the evidence was limited. Fast forward to 2021, and James Charles faced even more allegations from other people, and this led him to make a video called Holding Myself Accountable, which has since been deleted. And in that video and a follow-up called An Open Conversation, James admitted he had been messaging people and said he was desperate for love, but he claimed all these people lied about their ages and told him they were 18. And people obviously had problems with this response because, like, if you're a major influencer with millions of followers, shouldn't you be more careful about verifying someone's age before getting into any kind of inappropriate conversation? And many people pointed out that maybe sliding into DMs looking for relationships isn't the best idea when you have such a young audience. Now, here's my take on that whole situation, and I want to be clear, this is just my opinion. But when you're someone with that level of fame and influence, you have a responsibility to be extra cautious about who you're talking to. And if there's even a question about someone's age, you should be asking for verification or just not engaging in those types of conversations at all. It's really that simple. And the excuse that people lied about their age doesn't fully hold up when there are ways to verify. And also, maybe don't be looking for romantic connections with your followers
followers in the first place because the power dynamic there is already questionable. James's reputation definitely took a massive hit during this period, and I think for people who are online and aware during 2020 and 2021, they remember this and it colored their perception of him permanently. But here's what's interesting. James pivoted his content and started targeting a younger audience. And because of that, he's been able to continue creating content and even launch his makeup brand, because his current audience largely doesn't know about or understand the severity of these past allegations. And that's actually pretty concerning when you think about it, because history has a way of repeating itself if we don't learn from it. So why are we talking about all this again in 2025? Well, Ethan came back on TikTok this week and he's not holding back anymore. He posted a series of videos where he's showing receipts that he says prove his story. And in his first video, he talks about how TikTok was his escape when he was younger, and getting that comment from James was huge for him. But then everything went south really quickly, and he explains that he tried to speak about this before but faced severe harassment, including threats to his family, people messaging his relatives, people calling him closeted, and his videos kept getting taken down. So he gave up for a while because nobody believed him anyway. But now Ethan says he's been in contact with lawyers and he wants his full story told without hiding anything. And he literally says he's begging people to listen this time. And honestly, the emotion in his videos seems genuine to me. You can see he's struggling to talk about it and he keeps apologizing for getting emotional. And whether you believe him or not, it's clear this has affected him deeply. In his follow-up videos, Ethan shows what he claims is evidence of his legal consultations. He shows a contract from a law firm that had to be signed by him and his legal guardian because he was underage at the time. And he shows emails where the lawyer mentions reaching out to the Frisco Police Department and playing phone tag with a detective. And Ethan uploaded all his evidence to a Google Drive for the lawyers to review, and he shows those email exchanges as proof that he's been taking this seriously. Now, here's where things get really dark. Ethan explains that during the process of working with lawyers and the detective, he was going through severe harassment. People were sending him his own address, people were sending pictures of his house to his family, and he was receiving constant threats. And this pushed him into what he describes as a depressive episode where he was too scared to continue talking to the lawyers or the detective. And everyone kept pushing him to move forward, but it became too much for him mentally. And honestly, I can't imagine being a teenager dealing with that level of targeted harassment. That's absolutely traumatic. Then Ethan says the lawyers suggested they might be able to get money from James through this situation, and that was Ethan's breaking point because he says it was never about money for him. It was about getting justice and telling his truth. And I actually believe that, because if someone just wanted money, they wouldn't keep coming back to talk about it years later after facing death threats. They would have taken a payout and disappeared. Ethan says his biggest regret was speaking out initially without having all his receipts ready because nobody believed him and he faced horrible backlash. But now he wants to take his power back and show what he has. And he also says he hopes sharing his story might help other people going through similar situations, and he warns them not to make the same mistake he did by going public without solid proof. In terms of actual evidence, Ethan shows a video his brother recorded of him opening a Snapchat from James that said 4 years, and Ethan claims James was implying 4 more years until Ethan turned 18, which, if true, is absolutely concerning behavior. And Ethan says he has more photos and videos, but he's having technical difficulties getting them off his Google Drive. And he also shows a video where James allegedly told him he hates putting makeup on really hot guys, and the context there was that Ethan had suggested they do a collaboration video where James does his makeup, but Ethan says James made it seem like he wanted to help him grow his platform. So where does all of this leave us in 2025? Well, this has reopened the entire conversation about James Charles and his past, and people who remember the 2020-2021 situation are talking about it all over again. But there's also a whole new group of people hearing about this for the first time because his current audience is quite young and many of them weren't on the internet or weren't paying attention during the original controversy. And I think that's actually really important because it means a lot of his current fans don't have the full context of his history. Personally, I think when allegations like this come up, especially multiple allegations over time, we need to take them seriously and actually listen to what people are saying. And I'm not saying anyone is guilty or innocent because I'm not a judge or jury, but I am saying that dismissing these stories outright or harassing people who come forward is absolutely wrong. And we've seen time and time again that people who speak up about inappropriate behavior often face worse consequences than the people they're speaking about. And that's a problem. The internet has a responsibility to handle these situations better than we have in the past, and that means not jumping to conclusions, but also not dismissing serious allegations. And it means definitely not sending death threats to anyone, regardless of what you believe. And I hope we can all agree that threatening people and their families is never okay under any circumstances. So that's everything that's happening with Ethan's story coming back into the spotlight. And honestly, I think this is going to continue being a major conversation because Ethan seems determined to share everything he has, and people are definitely paying attention this time. So we'll have to see where this goes, but I wanted to break down everything that's been said so you have all the information to form your own opinion.